This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for the rant with Barbara Rose Brooker, who is an author and the founder of AgeMarch. And as of today, now I had to go out and verify this, Barbara, not that I didn't believe you, but we are at 53,000 views on AgeMarch 2021. And we're in the process of putting together AgeMarch 2022. I think that's wonderful. So congratulations, Barbara. And for those of you who want to read some great books that are out there, go out to Amazon and check out Barbara Rose Brooker. So who do we have today?
Thank you, Karen, for the intro. We have the fabulous Candiece Milford. And I say fabulous, I really mean it, the work she is doing. Candiece Milford has worked in the nonprofit arena of housing for the aging for 15 years. She is currently the managing director of marketing for the Rhoda Goldman Plaza in San Francisco. There are many other things she does, but we don't have time right now to talk about that. She currently serves as president of the nonprofit board of At Home with Growing Older. Candiece, welcome.
Thank you.
I am so glad you're here. And I'm going to start off with the question. Excuse me for a second. Something weird is happening with my computer, and I'm afraid to click it because I don't want to click us off. So I'm just going to start and say, as a woman who's going to be 85 in a few weeks, I feel that when you get to the higher numbers, as I call them, what happens, Candiece, of the people who leave their worlds as they knew it and they move to the Rhoda Goldman home? Is there an adjustment there for them? Are they able to pursue their lives in longevity with new energy and new purpose? And how do you work with these people?
That's a good question. First of all, we all know, myself included, that 98% of us want to stay home. We really want to do that. And I acknowledge that straightforwardly, which is one reason why I'm working on this other board, which is antithetical to the work I do here at Rhoda Goldman. And that is to help people figure out how to safely and with joy stay at home. Now, there comes a time, however, particularly now post-COVID, it's really, really sad what I experience on a daily basis. The notable decline cognitively and physically of the people who are coming into our community. Interestingly, we have a long wait list. We haven't had any ability to allow people other than on the wait list in for 2 years now, but now we can. But the people who are presenting have, they made it through the year, and some people are still reticent to consider moving, but they have to. And why do they have to? Because the home care that they may have been giving at $45 an hour, 24-hour care in San Francisco, that's over $30,000 a month. It's untenable. It's less expensive to come into a community than it is to stay at home. The other is their homes are not physically adapted to their current age and ability, and they have stairs, etc., that are real hazards to staying home. But
so they're cared for. We're at the Rhoda Goldman. They have 24-hour care.
Well, we're not a nursing home, and thank you for bringing, and really thank you, because in the press this last year, they lumped assisted living and skilled nursing together as one thing. They are not the same thing. You cannot live here if you need 24-hour care, but you have access to home health aides 24/7. So there's a big difference But the other reason people are moving in, despite wanting to stay home, I think is the more important one. And that is they miss the socialization. Unlike you, Barbara, who
Yes.
has a rich and deep life that you have created virtually. Many people don't understand the technology, don't have access to it, may not have families. Yes, they got through the last year alone in their apartments or homes, but they miss interacting with people. We're wired as social creatures and we need each other.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. So you really are seeing that. And when you say COVID during this horrible pandemic, um, are there a lot of people now leaving their homes because of the COVID who are, and what are the general ages of the people who come to the Rhoda Goldman?
Well, keeping in mind we want to stay home as long as possible. Oh, here's a good one.
Yeah.
Just last week, a daughter called and wanted to bring her mother in for a tour, and of course I said yes. And she comes in a wheelchair. That's not so unexpected. Sometimes the walking is hard for people; their balance isn't great and all. And then she announces that at 100 years old, she's ready to move now.
Oh my
How
God.
wonderful.
Oh,
100
how
years old.
fabulous.
Yes,
Is-
however, it wasn't fabulous in the sense that she was this close, less than like an eighth of an inch close to needing skilled nursing. She waited so long, and we couldn't meet her needs. They were just
I
too high. So I guess, yeah, it's when I say post-COVID, that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. So the average age in this community is 88. Our youngest is 60. I think we're going to start a centenarian club because we have 3 going on 400-year-olds. But
Oh,
people tend to live longer in a community setting
I
because
didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
about 7 years. But that's because of the programming and being around your peers and like-minded people and having lots of on-site resources to draw upon. And because the staff is younger, there's a lot of intergenerational exposure, which is really important. So important.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to interject and say I've been fortunate enough to have visited the Rhoda Goldman home many times and be a guest of Candice's for lunch. And I've always been so struck, not only by the beauty of the dining room, the service, the charm, like you're just special, and the wonderful food, but observing the groups of people sitting at their tables, laughing, knowing each other, dressed beautifully, many going in and out, taking their walks or getting their cabs. And it really is more a, how would you describe it? Like being in a beautiful building or community, and or in Europe, I understand they have many of these communities. And it's not like you just said, where we get mixed up sometimes hearing or thinking of it as a nursing home. That is really quite different.
Very, very different. Now, that said, we do provide hospice care. So if you're end of life, you can stay here and have family visits. And it's much more gracious and comforting than being in a skilled nursing center, which we all want to avoid. Yes, that it is a gracious, kind of a unique community in the sense that most communities in this space called assisted living just take whoever shows up at the door. We have to frankly, we have, because of that wait list, it's a sort of self-screening process. We weren't allowed, because of the wait list, to just take anyone who walked in off the street. We had to honor the people waiting. The people waiting either, and sometimes they waited up to 2 years to get in when we were 100% full for 2.5 years, but they did. And in the meantime, some of them had to go to assisted living because their needs were such that they couldn't stay home anymore. Others may have passed away. So the wait list kind of acted as a filter. So who came in here were the more physically sound and cognitively fit people. Now that said, there's a whole memory care floor, but I'm just talking about the general community. So the vibrancy that you experience walking in the doors, which by the way are right behind you, that's the entrance to our community.
Right, it's beautiful too.
Past Braun Gates, it's a very artful community.
Yeah.
They tended to be and tend to be more engaged. And for example, we have a bus that takes people all over the Bay Area. We went to Bouquets to Art, which is a beautiful fundraiser at the museum where florists are invited to create bouquets that reflect sculptures or paintings. They go
beautiful.
and all over Napa to wine tasting. So it's, and by the way, not everybody that gets on that van is able to do it by themselves. It's handicapped accessible. If you're in a wheelchair and we can push you, off you go. We don't let age, the physical age or condition to get in the way of your engagement. It's your willingness to engage. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I was just going to ask you, so age is not, people are not defined there or segregated by age.
No,
And
all are welcome, all ages, all the ethnicities. You know what I mean?
Yes, because so many people are segregated and defined by age. I mean, I experience that all the time, whether you're in a market or there's certain lines, you know, anyone over 70 go to the left, those under 50 to the right. I really hope that someday age won't matter in the sense that there won't be any definition. So do you see any signs of age segregation or ageism within this beautiful world of Rhoda Goldman?
No, I really don't, because we're a little community. We have 130 residents. We have 152 full-time staff. We're a nonprofit, so we can do that. The staff tends to stay. We only lost one caregiver last year. One. Caregiver gold these days. If anybody is looking at this program, that's the field to get into, because there is a huge need as this boomer population is aging, either at home or in a community. But no, one of the most charming things that I enjoy so much, haven't for the last year because we couldn't have groups come in here, where the little preschoolers from the Wu Yi Chinese preschool come in and do art with our residents. You know, it's completely spellbound. Both were just charming to watch interact. We have high school come in here and help with, you know, the smartphones and technology. Families are welcome. We have, when we can do it again, we're not yet allowed to bring in families and friends into the dining room, but the Sunday lunch was just, it was just one big giant family, and it was delightful.
Do you arrange the programs?
Me personally, no. We have a director of programming who is in charge of that, because it's a very active community and there's a lot going on. Like, we have lifelong learning classes live streamed from a local university. The residents choose it. We pay for a couple of classes a semester. We have, you know, lecturers come in from the docents from the museums and talk about the shows that are there currently. There's 6 libraries in the building. There's a public library across the street. People love to read.
It's wonderful.
Creative writing club. We have a book club. But these are not people who are going to sit back and say, you know, life is over. No way, not these people.
No, life is beginning.
Yeah.
The thing is, I always say there isn't one way to be 60 or one way to be 90.
Right.
We go in different, we transcend, we go in different transitions. So that's what I want to know. How do you see the future for people, I would say, over 60? Or what about the people who can't afford a beautiful community like this?
And I tell you, it just tears me apart. Just yesterday, I got 3 calls. From one was a case manager, and he was trying to place a homeless older woman who was living in her car.
Oh.
I got a call from, well, a much younger person who was also homeless, 17. I don't know how she got our number, but it's frightening, honestly. Our generation, the boomers, didn't save enough for retirement anyway. It's very expensive to live in these communities. San Francisco is, you know, out of sight. It's kind of a cultural thing. I do believe I'm a Pollyanna. I keep in touch with the longevity economy, and I'm watching, like at Home with Growing Older, of which I am a part of, wants to start a school of aging where people of all ages get together. In fact, we're doing that in October. We're having an age-in where
What is it called? What is it called, Candice?
It's like the 60s. Instead of a it's called an age-in. And we'll
an age-in. Oh, I love that.
And we're going to people of all ages participate. And so I have great hope that our culture is evolving. It's slow. These things take time, but it's a topic that is very much being talked about out there. For example, there, as you know, a lot of people are going back to school as older adults. They want to pursue maybe their career got in the way and they always wanted to be an archaeologist. So why not go back to school?
Absolutely.
And they're embraced now by their fellow students who may be in their 20s. They're not an anomaly anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Many communities, they're called university-based retirement communities, UBRCs. And they are communities for older adults that are built next to or near colleges and universities. They're all over the country. The closest one here in the Bay Area would be UC Davis. And
isn't there one at, I'm just asking, at San Francisco State University? The, what is it called? Well, it used to be called the over 60 classes. I'm just curious because I went back to San Francisco State and grad school, and I just think it's so wonderful what you just said, that people of every age now, they can do it online if they don't want to go to the university.
Right. The one I was thinking of was Lassell Village, which is back east, and a requirement when you move into this continuing care retirement community is that you have to either volunteer 450 hours a year or attend classes in the university nearby as part of your agreement to live there. So the premise is staying engaged and learning. Life is just beginning. It's not ending just because you've retired. There's a whole new world there.
I'm so glad you said that. Life is just beginning. It's not ending. When I was teaching my writing workshops at Ollie, I would say that between 60 on up were the average ages. And so many adults came in and said, I've always wanted to write a book, but I thought I was too old. And I think what you're saying and your work right now is this integration of all ages, you know, the young helping the older helping the younger. Learning, constant learning is the key, is really the key to longevity. That's what I meant.
Well, Candice, you brought up something that I think is important. And you said that the cost for many how can we in our society start to change that? Because I know when my mother went to independent living, which had 3 steps, they had independent, they had assisted, and then there was nursing care. So we knew if we had to move her down the hall at some point, we could. And we were very lucky she got in at a time where, yes, it was expensive, but not that much more than what she was paying rent for where she moved out of. But now I'm finding out that for the same apartment and the same facilities that my mother had, it's almost 3 times what she was paying for it. If I had to move into one of those, I couldn't. So, how can we help this generation that's coming behind us, because they're not going to be able to afford to take care of us or themselves?
In other words, the work that you're doing, Candice, and this wonderful premise of integration and beginning, wouldn't it be wonderful if this would affect the masses, where we have a generation someday where we're all have the same, of course, the same opportunities when you get to a certain age. There's so much marginalization and depression with older people who
Well, it's around finances too, and it's a very emotional subject. And as I mentioned earlier, it's very scary what I see, what I hear about how are people going to afford to live in community if they need to. It's a cultural issue that it goes back to the family. The family used to be the ones who would take care of their elders. There's a woman on our board at Home with Growing Older whose mother has just turned 100, and she's been living with her family for 30 years. And just think, those grandchildren got to really know their grandmother. Now, if we could only emulate that, but that's a huge cultural shift, and it will take time. Back to the affordability, I don't know what the answer to that is. Many people are researching what to do and how to help. The one thing that I do when people call up and say, I live in a rent controlled apartment and I've just been told my building's been sold and I have, what do I do? And my answer is, do you want the truth? Because it's harsh. And if they say yes, here in San Francisco are the 2 solutions. One is to swallow your pride and accept maybe living in a home where there is a real estate rich and cash poor widow, or someone who owns a home that needs extra income, but really wants companionship, or just someone in the house because they're alone. And they vet these people. There are groups that do background, checks, and they match them for compatibility.
I know about those.
Yeah, so
I know people who have done that. But what is the other alternative? Say people who want to be alone, do they go to the rooming houses, those old hotels in San Francisco?
I say the option is leave the Bay Area.
That's why
it's harsh. But unfortunately, this is an unaffordable city. And if you're on a fixed income and you lose that golden rent-controlled apartment, unless you have a family that you love, you have to love them if you're going to live with them. Conversely, sadly, we don't have any other realistic options. All the affordable housing communities here are full with 10-year wait lists. So
I know. But is it also, Candice and Karen, do you think, the attitude, I call it the age attitude of our culture, the anti-age attitude that has been internalized, not by you, not by us. We're working to fight that, by so many people, because I read, is it in Sweden or I forget what country, Finland, there was a documentary about this hotel that they converted, this beautiful villa hotel, into it's almost free for people of, older age. Of course, they had to be vetted. There were a lot of interesting people there who, maybe lost their places or whatever. And they're all living there. They're doing arts and crafts. It showed them walking by the ocean. Wouldn't that be wonderful to have those around the world?
Yes, yeah, that's the right thing to do. But unless the government, steps in and underwrites these kinds of communities, or there's a philanthropist out there who wants to do the right thing, I don't see that happening anytime soon. That is the way it should be. Yeah, yeah. There are other types of living where you can, it's still not inexpensive in California, maybe more so in other states if they're there, but this is a kind of housing option that came out of what they call the digital nomad group, which are the younger people working for tech industries, and they don't have to live in any one place. So they travel all over the country.
Right.
They stay in these places that are, they get their own room, but there's a communal kitchen, a communal gym. There's all kinds of opportunities for programming, and people of all ages now are living there either temporarily or full-time, depending on the cost. So those kinds of things are starting to pop up more and more. There are a few in San Francisco, actually. Yeah. But
that's very interesting. As you said, ageism is being talked about now, because when I first founded AgeMarch in 2009, it wasn't really talked about. It was really hard getting people to help me put that together in 2009. And, but I think now, as you said, it is at least out there. That's why I'm excited about AgeMarch, because obviously people want to talk about it.
Right.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to, I would love to start a nonprofit, Candice and Karen, and call it the Dream Production Company, and find people around the world to donate places, wonderful places for people of different ages to come to. That's like a dream,
Right.
So what are we going to do, really?
Well, as board president of At Home with Growing Older and doing fundraising for them, try and get some of these corporations to give money. They would prefer to go with the arts, because that's far more sexy and interesting.
Yes, of course. And they like their name on the wall of the museum too. Yeah, it's definitely. So tell me about your work with the older, what is it called?
At Home with Growing Older.
Yeah.
Just briefly, it was started by an architect 10 years ago, became a nonprofit a few years ago. And the idea was to help people learn how, and we have a workshop called Aging 360. And we teach people how to look at where they live now and analyze it according to some universal design principles that will allow you to stay home safely. And I always say with joy, because part of it is color and part of it is maybe eliminating things that just accumulated so you can focus on the things that you really love. But, changing simple things that you could do yourself. You don't have to hire a contractor to do, like changing doorknobs that twist to levers.
Yes.
Modest things. Maybe taking the carpet off the floor so it's not a trip hazard. But so that you can, as I said earlier, 98% of us want to stay home. And we do that as long as we can. And when we can't anymore, there's Rhoda Goldman.
Oh, I think that's exciting that you're doing that. Are you seeing great results from this work?
Well, it's a growing nonprofit.
It's growing. Mhm.
Yeah. And our market penetration, thanks to COVID and going virtual and
Yeah.
having everything, we had an at-home on-air radio program that we're going to continue because it reaches, all over the world. And we just got a new board member from New York, which is exciting. It just, so we're on the cusp of great things. And any funders out there?
Yes, fundraisers,
Yeah.
please come in.
And I think it's because of the work you're doing, your husband does, what Barbara's doing. We're all becoming very vocal about it. And yes, the biggest generation that's going through this are the boomers. Eventually, the boomers, we won't be around, but we have to prepare the following generations. And I know my two sons, keep saying, we're going to keep you and dad home up until the last minute. You did that for your mother and father. And I appreciate that because I believe in integrating my life. One of the tough things for my mother when she moved was she was 94, I believe, and very, very capable. And even though she was in independent living and there were programs, the first year she loved it all. By the second year, some of those programs were repeats. And as it turned out, she started getting a little frustrated because she wanted to keep growing and there wasn't that growth there. So that's something that everybody is learning. How do we make this work?
Well, I think what Candice said too, addressing what you just said, Karen, the young are helping those who are older learn to use technology, for example, because there's master classes on Zoom. There's so many classes, YouTube alone, the film clubs. I have one right now, and with men and women who are 80 up on film. They watch things on Netflix. There's so much available now. So it is the learning. I love what you said, Candice, the last phrase about learning. It was a phrase you said. We can't ever give up the learning. I mean, it could be maybe just wanting to grow an avocado plant, but to have that energy,
Right.
no matter what age, to have the energy. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to learn Japanese unless you want to. I mean, there's different people have different desires, but to have the desire is so important. So I think your work is so important.
And one of the greatest things I heard actually, this is from someone at the Commonwealth Club who decided they were in their late 80s to learn the cello. And she said, I did it because I knew I wasn't going to be famous. And that really wasn't the point. I always wanted to learn cello. And I feel so free because there's no expectation on anybody's part. So I can just enjoy it and just do it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the joy of, that's it, girls. The joy of age.
Yes.
It's a gift. It's not a disability, I always say. It's a gift. Even when bad things happen, I mean, we have the health issues come along or whatever, but the spirit of it is, I think, what we're all trying to work on. And
like we say, we are our own worst enemies. We create our boundaries. And some people don't have that. And they're very inspiring. There was a 95-year-old man at another community where I worked. He always wanted to skydive. I have a clip of him jumping out of the plane. I still have it. And he looked so happy. And he got down on the ground, thumbs up.
Oh, I love that. George Bush did that too. Remember, for his 90th birthday? I love that. I mean, whatever you want to do or can do, there's so many ways to go.
That's right. Which is why I want to go to outer space.
I was just going to bring that up, that you really want to. I know.
Oh, I do. I've signed up for two of these trips. One requires a rather hefty $250,000 deposit, which I
know you're talking about the one that goes, yeah.
Galactic. But I
Yeah.
signed up for another one where you can get on the list and it's half the cost, 3 times as long, and it's a giant hydrogen-filled balloon that goes up into the atmosphere over a 6-hour period and then down again.
Are you serious? Would you go on the balloon?
Of course I would.
Oh my God. You're wonderful. You have that sense of adventure. I know we always talk about space. I don't think I even if I could, I'm too scared. I'm too much a scaredy cat. But I love that you want to, and you will. That's the thing. You know, it's ageless. I just think you're doing wonderful, important work. And I know we could talk for a long time. I know that you're really busy and gave us your time today, which I so appreciate. And maybe this is only a beginning. Maybe you will come back and talk more about what is happening in your AGENS. AGE-INS, the AGENS. I'd like to hear more about that, Candiece.
Or maybe live from outer space.
And also
great.
about what's happening with outer space, yes. And also, where can people who are listening to you today contact you? What is the best way to contact you? Website or
to rgplaza.org. That's Rhoda Goldman Plaza, rgplaza.org. And there's a contact page and you can email me through there.
Yes. So everyone, rgplaza.org. And if you Google that, you'll be able to go right on the contact to
And we'll put that in the show notes for you.
Yes. Karen's done a beautiful job of pre-promoting you too, and John. So I thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll look forward to the next one.
All right.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful
Take
day.
care, everyone.
All right.